and you're really, really interested in learning different ways to applique, this would be an excellent book for you. It may not still be in print, I'm not sure. I gave you some handouts, and the first one is turn to the part that says stem applique. So this is the method for stem applique. You take a piece of fabric on the bias, fold it wrong sides together, and you draw your line that you want to applique your stem against. You're going to have to, okay? And then you fold it and lay your line right on that traced line that you've put down there. Then you stitch close to the raw edge. And after you've stitched, you may have to trim it, but then you just press it over and it will lay down very beautifully as a applique stem. And then you just have one edge to finish. You don't have to finish both edges.
Now, are you stitching that first line by machine?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
You don't have to. If you want to do it by hand, you may.
Well, no, but you're not appliquing it.
Makes
No.
it a lot easier.
But,
Carole,
but
it's
then,
sort of like putting a binding on that.
almost, yeah, except it's on flat.
Stitch it on and.
Right. Now, you can also make this much thinner. You can still use, I cut a 1-inch piece of bias, but you could conceivably go way up to here. You know, you could make a really, really skinny applique by going farther in. This is stitched at 1/4, but if you went in, you know, half, you could make a really, really skinny stem. And what you would do is just trim out the excess and then fold this over. That little bit of seam allowance sort of puffs it up to a little bit. So
Is
for
the
those,
pencil line where you're going to stitch
no, the pencil line is for your raw edge.
for the raw edge?
Yeah.
And then it goes over a little bit past that.
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
it
okay.
actually it ends up almost in the middle. The pencil line ends up in the middle after you stitch. So it's really fun and easy, and when you press it over, it lays really nice. So I wanted to show you that for those of you that haven't ever done that. And that's called stem applique, 1 inch on the bias, fold in half, wrong sides together, lay the cut edges on the drawn line, and stitch, and finish with your choice of stitching, either hand or machine.
If it's not on the bias, it gets crinkly.
Right.
You'll get creases and folds and
Okay.
puckers. Yeah. The other page will tell you about freezer applique, and this is the method I use. I draw my shape onto the dull side of freezer paper, and then I put it onto my fabric. And you'll notice I do have a straight of grain mark, okay, and that's important when you're doing curves. So then I go and I just trace as many of these leaves patterns as I want on freezer paper. There's no allowance, so you just draw, and cut on the line. After you cut them out, then you put them on the wrong side of your fabric, okay? And then this is what I call idiot work. I sit in front of the TV in the night, and I fold under my edges, and I stitch, always with blue thread. That's a joke. But in the group where I made that first quilt, we always said we had to baste in blue thread. I don't know why. So I always do that because it's fun. So I take and I fold my edges over. I thread my needle, and I fold my edges over. And this is very important. You must have your knot on the right side. Your basting knot must be on the right side, because you'll never get your paper out if you don't. Okay, and then I just go ahead and I just do just a basting stitch all around the edge, pulling my edge tight, folding my points in as I go, and I go 1 stitch beyond my knot. See, here's my knot right here, and here's my ending thread.
Can I see,
Yeah, I'll pass it around. So there's my knot, and here's my ending thread. I go 1 pass, so it stays secure. Okay? Now, does anybody not know how to do the applique stitch, the tack stitch? Everybody knows how to do the tack stitch?
I don't believe it if they say
Okay, well,
they
that's
do.
what I'll demonstrate later for those that want to learn, okay? And I do have paper, I have patterns. Now, here's something for when you do curves, okay? Here's my other piece. Here again, I took my shape, I traced it, and I ironed it to the wrong side of my fabric. I started to do my stitching, and I'm a creature of habit. I always start in the same place. See, can you see my knot right there? Okay, because I want to do that point first. So I go down and I stitch, I get my point really nice. And then I start to come up. And when I get to where this curves around, I go out into the seam allowance. Can you see where I've gone out into the seam allowance and done a gathering stitch? You see that?
Yeah.
Okay, now when I get to this point, I cut into about one thread from the edge of the paper. Okay, this is my favorite part. And then I pull my basting thread up, and it will conform to the shape. Okay. I'm shaking very bad today, so. Okay, and what you have to do now is secure that. So you just go down and you take a stitch right through the paper. Okay, and you just pull that up till it conforms to the edge of the paper. And you can get the nicest
Oh,
curve
yeah.
by doing that. And the trick is to put a little gathering stitch out into the seam allowance. Okay?
1/8 stitches or pretty small?
They
stitches?
should be small, because the bigger they are, the more pleats you get. And I've been shaking very bad lately, so mine aren't as good as usual. But when you come down here, once you get to that, where that inner point is, you take a little catch stitch like this to hold it, so it'll stay down. And then you go out here, and you start doing your little gathering stitch again. And when you get to where it's kind of straight, you pull it up again. Okay, and then you go to the ironing board, and with the wrong side up, edge of your iron, just go in like this and get it all nice and flat. And if you get a place where it's not, use your stiletto or something to get it nice and round. But I think that's the best way to do an outside curve. Okay? And then when you're done, you have all these little shapes, and you can just go sit down and applique to your heart's content. Now you're saying, how do you get the paper out?
Yeah.
That scares me. How do I get the paper out? Okay.
Carol, you're ironing on the, when you do iron on, is the shiny part on the back side of the
On the
material?
wrong side of the fabric, yes. Okay. So here I have already tack stitched down one of my leaves, okay? And if you notice, I also put my pin on the back. Because part of the applique problem is you're catching your thread on the pins all the time. So I do like to put it, because I've got my finished shape, I can just put it on the back. Now, what you have to do is pull your basting out first. So I usually just go in here, Okay, here's my knot head, because it's on the top. My hands will work. Pull that out. Sometimes I have to just finagle. Yeah, just go around and pull some of my edges out. Okay, you pull your basting out. Okay, and I have stitched all the way around to here. You see I've stitched all the way around to here.
Watch your needle.
You just
Okay.
have one little opening.
And this is more than I usually keep. I usually keep 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, okay? Take tweezers, whatever you happen to have, I go in. And if I can, just shake it today. Okay,
I'd rip my whole leaf off.
no you wouldn't.
Not to use tweezers.
Do you Wet it?
Nope,
Spray it?
nope. I just can't get a hold of it because I'm shaking.
how you got
One thing you can do is go in between your fabric and your paper and loosen it.
Oh, with some
about freeze it?
straight there, see, there it is.
Okay, and you can use these over. And then, because you've already pressed this nicely, you still got a nice little edge. And you can go and finish up, and you'll have your piece all finished.
Those are surgical
Those are surgical tweezers, but you can get them at,
drugstores. I've seen
you
them.
can also get them at the fairs, the.
Flea market.
Oh, they have
market.
this at the
Yeah.
drugstore?
And they have medical supply
Okay.
places.
So that's
I've got 'em
That's
here.
basically what I wanted to show you. The advantage is that when you sit down to applique, your shapes are all done. You don't have to fuss with any loose threads. Everything's ready to go. It's a crisp edge, which I like sewing against. The disadvantage is that it's 2 steps. And you know that you use the thread that matches your applique, not the thread that matches your background. So that's basically what I wanted to show you today.
How do you mark the background?
I don't. That's called cartooning,
Yeah.
where you trace your pattern onto your background. I choose not to do that because I usually have, my marks showing.
Yeah.
Went to this method because I don't like cartooning. I don't like drawing it, and I don't like trying to match up pencil mark to edge. Sometimes I'll just put dots, like this is where the point is supposed to be. Like say, this is where the point is supposed to be, and this is where the indent is supposed to be, and I'll line those up. Or I'd make my own little,
light box. I'll
Yeah.
put the pattern on the light box,
And pin it.
lay my
Yeah.
my fabric down, pin my appliques where they're supposed to go.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
like
yeah,
her.
that's
I
a
do
good
not
idea.
cartoon.
yeah, I've done that also. And sometimes I'll just use, the blue pen and just make a few marks. Sometimes I'll just do a straight line. This is where the leaf is supposed to go. This is the shape of the leaf. Lay the leaf on that.
Yeah.
But I avoid cartooning just because I've not had good luck with it. The take-up seems to distort what I've done. But as you say, I do the light box and just pin on sometimes.
Also, these new pins they have now, for you that aren't comfortable, those new pins that we've all been buying, you can cartoon with those and then iron it off.
Yeah,
Yeah, it comes
Yeah.
off, because I
It will
tried
come
it.
off.
I've used the white ones and they come off too.
But
She says if you go to cold weather, it comes back.
All those pins.
Those
The
pins.
temperature has to drop
Yeah,
a little.
need to remember as, when you baste your edge, leave your knot on top and leave your ending thread on the top so that you can remove them. Because if you don't take out your basting, you're not gonna take out your paper. And I hope you've learned how to do a nice edge by gathering out in the seam allowance. And don't forget, your seam allowance is supposed to be 3/16 of an inch, not a quarter, not an eighth, 3/16. That seems to be the best amount of fabric to fold under and. Nice